to order 6:32. Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today's Flag Day. Today's Flag Day.
It is?
It's
Yeah,
Flag Day.
it is Flag Day.
It's Flag Day.
I
Well,
make that up.
we just saluted the
You
flag.
think I randomly make up holidays?
Birthday.
All right, on roll call, Mr. Bartlett.
Here.
Mrs. Graves, of course, is not here. We'll have a motion for that in 1 second. Dr. Lewis,
Here,
Ms.
mostly.
Palazzolo,
Here.
Mrs. Rankin,
Here.
Mr. Stelzer.
Here.
All right, I need a motion in a second to excuse Avia.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Palazzolo.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
All right, everybody seen the minutes from the last meeting? Any questions, any corrections, any
I have a
comments?
correction.
Okay.
Sorry. On the last page, where it talks about the council vacancy, and it says the committee of the whole will meet,
Oh, yeah,
it's a special meeting of council.
yes. You want to change that to a special meeting of council?
Yes, please.
That was what was said.
Yeah.
Right. No,
But you
okay.
noticed the special.
So I'm
meeting of
fixing
council.
her.
Okay. See, that's what was said.
Okay, so we're going to make that correction. Anything else regarding the minutes? All good? All right, moving on to communications, what we're going to do this evening. Oh, I'm sorry, we need a motion and a second to make that change in the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Palazzolo.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Abstain on the minutes.
Okay.
I wasn't in attendance.
Okay. What we're going to do in communications this evening, because we have a couple of special guests with us, and they're going to give us a presentation regarding Chief Copeland's report, Scherpenberg's report, Deanna's report. Obviously, they're in there. You can look through them. If you have questions, contact them directly. More than happy to answer. Regarding the Eileen Beatty's building administrator report, I just want to make a quick comment on that, that you should take note that she did go ahead and prepare a little informational sheet sort of telling us where we are in terms of collections on fees, expenses, and, you know, it's actually definitely, you know, taking a turn for the better. So you can note that, and if you have any questions, you can call her as well. All right. Do we want to make any comments now about the task force? Or do you want
Let's
to
go this,
Yeah.
because you have it in order, just go ahead and do this next.
Good. All right. We have with us tonight from Hamilton County, Joy Pearson, and she's going to give us a presentation about the Hamilton County HUD Grants Program. Floor is yours.
Great, I'll let James start.
And, oh, I'm sorry, and James Noyes from Hamilton County Building Department, right?
Planning and Development.
Planning and Development, there we go. If you would like, or you can,
That's the microphone, yeah.
yes, the microphone is there.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity for us to come out today. My name is James Noyes. I'm the Director of Hamilton County Planning and Development. The Planning and Development Department is it actually consists of 5 separate divisions. Joy's division, which is the Community Development Division, is one of those 5 divisions. So the other divisions are building inspection, community planning, stormwater and infrastructure, and development services. So development services would be planning and zoning, stormwater infrastructure, obviously stormwater and hydrant repair and so forth. And that is Mariemont, currently utilizes a couple of our services. You do fire hydrant repair with us. The fire department contracts with those, so anytime a fire hydrant goes out, we get contacted and we provide those fire hydrant services for you. We're able to provide a good price, obviously, and one which is fairly quickly to replace those. So we have a good relationship there. I think it's 2019, I think, or a couple years we've been doing that. Also, we do your water quality review as part of the stormwater district. So we are familiar with the community. I'm very familiar with the community. I did a planning study about 30 years ago in UC, and I'm very glad to be back. Seems like I've been back here a couple times in the last week. My daughter was at the barn taking taking a class out there. So I had been that part of Mariemont before, so it was quite nice. Anyway, you don't want to hear about my travails and trips. You want to get along with the presentation, and our star is Joy Pearson. Joy administers our 3 federal grant programs from HUD, which is CDBG, Home, and ESG. So we'll be here to talk to you about CDBG. She's been very involved in this project, and she'll go ahead and outline the CDBG program. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the very knowledgeable and experienced Joy Pearson. Thank you very much.
That means he doesn't want you to ask him any questions. Okay, I think that's it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Joy Pearson. I'm the Community Development Administrator for Hamilton County. I oversee the HUD grants that we receive on an annual basis, as well as the special grants we've been getting with the CARES Act last year and some other funding coming, Emergency Rental Assistance Program and some American Rescue Plan money. So over the last 17 or 18 months, it's been 24/7, just plowing through, and I'm super happy to be here to talk to you about joining the county's Community Development Block Grant Program. So if you want to do the next slide, I have an overview of the 3 grants that we receive every year. The first one is the largest, $3.5 million, and
turn it.
yeah.
You gotta
Thank
turn the
you.
next one.
I usually just do page down or an arrow.
Hold on.
It's this one.
There you go.
Great. Okay, so our largest grant is the Community Development Block Grant Program, and that is a combination of 8 different programs from 1974, when HUD combined all of these different grants into one program. I'm sure I'm not the only one that was alive and well then. I was 10 years old, but the program has not changed much over all of these years. It's only just gotten a little bit more flexible. So that's a nice thing about this grant. It's the only grant that the federal government has that can be used for matching funds. It can be used for social services, construction, economic development, et cetera, et cetera. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but that's our largest program. And then the Home Investment Partnership Program is for affordable housing projects or single-family home rehabs or down payment assistance programs for first-time home buyers. And it is a much smaller grant of $1.5 million per year. We invest all of the funds from our home program through a competitive process for developers to request funding or nonprofits to request funding. So that's our second largest grant. And the third is Emergency Solutions Grant. It used to be called Emergency Shelter Grant, but HUD wanted to focus more on homelessness prevention rather than housing people in shelters. So our grant is quite small compared to Cincinnati. They receive about $1 million per year, and the city's funding and our funding, we work together with the continuum of care. We have to work together and plan our money together. So their funding is used for shelter operations and some homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing. Ours is rapid rehousing. So if somebody's just about to be evicted, we can, or they're having some other issues, that we try to get them into housing and keep them out of a shelter. So, okay, that's the overview, Joe. The next map is, or slide, is a map of the communities that participate in our program. Our CDBG program is dependent, our grant funding is dependent on the number of communities that participate in our program. So I can tell you, we have 41 out of 47 local governments. Milford participates with Claremont County. They're just a tiny sliver inside Hamilton County. And Loveland, which is in 3 counties, participates with us. The funding is based on the age of the housing stock in the community, the number of housing units, the demographics of the community. If there are more seniors, there's more funding, and also the income levels and poverty levels of the people who live in the communities. I think the next slide is just a pie chart of, here we go, this is the way we allocate the funding. So for many, many years, we provided funding to community projects, and then we had some, what I call legacy nonprofits that got funding. I had the pleasure, when I came to the county in 2015, of having $1.2 million of prior year money that had to be spent. So we were able to push up a bunch of projects and create an economic development program, as well as a mini grant program, and I'll talk to you about some of those programs. And those are very important for communities like yours who have limited areas for low to moderate income folks, but you have plenty of need for historic preservation, planning grants, economic development, et cetera. So right now we have about 43% of the funding is in community projects, 15% is admin. We have a countywide economic development program that's about 13% or 15%, and then we have our countywide nonprofit services. That is various programs that apply for our funding every year. I'm going to jump to the eligible community projects. I mentioned that our funding is based on the number of communities that join. I have on the, I flipped the slide to the end, but I don't want to, I want to tell you the information now. We estimate that Mariemont would bring between $26,000 and $30,000 to our grant every year. And in order to have, for communities to have impactful projects, we budget in 3-year cycles. So over that 3 years, you would multiply what you bring to the table for 3 years and then divide that by 45%. So we do all the compliance, all the admin, Davis-Bacon regulations and MBE, minority business enterprise bidding, et cetera. But so you don't have to do any of the administrative work, but we're the only county out of 180 counties in the entire country that provide all of our communities access to funding every 3 years. So we're a little crazy right now, also because we had COVID funding that was extra last year. But we are very committed to bringing the money back to the community where, you know, folks here pay their income taxes to the federal government. They might as well be benefiting some from the benefit, I'm sorry, from the federal money coming through HUD. So it also helps us with equity issues. So, you know, the larger communities that are bringing larger amounts are getting larger, you know, project funding. So just as a FYI, oh, I think I missed a slide before this. Oh, yeah, there we go, thanks. For community projects, for any project to be eligible, actually, these are the criteria. If a project is in a low to moderate income area, it can be used, the funding can be used for pretty much anything. So street reconstruction, traffic signals, parks, playgrounds, sidewalk improvements, et cetera. So Mariemont does not have any low mod areas as defined by the census tract. If there was a project on a small street, for example, to replace a culvert, we have done in the past, we've done an income survey of the people that live on that street and found out that it was qualified, that it was a low to moderate income area. If you don't mind, jump into the next slide and then I'll ask you to slide back. So 80% of the area median income for a family of 4 is $68,000. For a single person, it's $48,000. So most people who are working in, you know, living in living wage jobs are still considered low to moderate income. If they're making less than $20-something an hour, they're still considered low to moderate income. This is mostly key for seniors in your area or possibly some people who are renting in apartment buildings. But every community has low mod residents. In fact, Indian Hill has 12% of their community as low mod. So just a lot of seniors that are on fixed incomes. That doesn't mean that they don't have wealth, it just means that they don't have annual income that is above that level. So I'll ask you to switch back if that's okay, Joe. So I'm going to focus more on the other types of, one back the other way, the eligible community projects. Thanks. Yep. You're just.
Joe, you went too fast.
He's just having fun with us now.
Thank you. So I mentioned projects in low to moderate income areas that we'll kind of set this aside for a minute. Other projects are historic preservation or historic restoration. So if you wanted to stabilize a building that was at risk of falling apart, or you wanted to minimize damage because a roof had fallen off and it's a historic building and that's 50 years or older, so it's pretty broad, our funding could be used for that. Or if there was a house where somebody had a fire and it was a historic building and you want to stabilize it, you can use this funding on a private property with permission from the landlord or the owner, the property owner, or if something's declared a nuisance. So another group of projects would be anything that brings you into compliance with the American with Disabilities Act. So it could be adding an elevator to this building. So it doesn't matter where the project is. If it's ADA, we can do the project in any area and with any building. Other restrictions are here for general government purposes. So we wouldn't be able to fund a city hall expansion unless it was just the elevator, just the ADA portion of it. So, okay, another area would be the removal of hazards such as asbestos or lead-based paint, or if you had a brownfield site in an industrial park that had some waste, cleanup, or phase 1 or phase 2 projects could be funded for environmental assessment. Also, any project that benefits senior citizens is considered an eligible project. The assumption is that seniors are on fixed incomes. So we've done, every single senior center in Hamilton County has money in it from the block grant program. I found some papers today from 1970, 1980. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know they had a senior center. You know, so we do a lot of senior center work right now, mostly roofs and parking lots and upgrading HVAC. We've also done some public Wi-Fi at Forest Park Senior Center. And then lastly, removal of blighted or outdated buildings. It could be acquisition and removal or acquisition and demolition of an outdated building. HUD's phrase is slum and blight, which is a 60s phrase. I prefer to say blighted and outdated buildings, but that's one of the national objectives that could be met with a project like that. So now I'm ready to move. I wanted to show you a couple of projects from nearby communities. These are two different parks. One's in Reading and one's in Deer Park. And there were residents that had physical disabilities. And in one community, somebody was in a wheelchair and was a 15-year-old child who had never been on a swing. And so there was an effort to raise money on at the community level, and I happened to see someone's Facebook page, and I went, wait a minute, we have money to give you guys to do that. You save people's money for something else. So we got that done within 60 days. So that's the picture on the left. And then the picture on the right is another, yeah. This is in Sharonville. This is an ADA standalone restroom, and then a path that goes to the parking lot and another path that goes up to a shelter. So they had no restroom outside at Gower Park, which is their largest park. And so this project was, the actual restroom was probably $55,000. And it's the way it works, the water's all in there already, and they didn't have to bring a sewer line for some reason. I don't know the technology. I'm sorry, I should have foamed up on a little septic system or something. But anyway, the first year they put their restroom in, and I hadn't been to the site. And I went there and I was like, how do you get to the restroom? There are no paths. Like, why didn't you put the paths in first so people could use the restroom when they got it here? So we ended up being able to fund that, and it's all accessible for wheelchairs, strollers, et cetera. So that area is not a low-mod area, but we were able to qualify the project with ADA. Let's see the next picture. Okay, this is, I'm going to give a description of our 3 competitive programs. 2 of them are important to you. So I'll go to the third one first. I mentioned the affordable housing projects that we fund. This is generally to fill a gap in a project. So it might be a single-family home with Habitat that they need some money to write down the mortgage because their mortgages are minimal. I think the average mortgage payment for Habitat for Humanity's homes is $600. So our money is used to write down the cost for single-family homes. And then other projects are usually larger. An example would be West Union Square in Coleraine Township, and it was 70 units of new senior housing in an area that was filled with crime, dilapidated buildings. We were able to use funding from the state of Ohio and from the federal government to purchase 8 4-unit buildings and tear them down, and then reroute the traffic, and then build this new 70-unit senior housing project. It has elevators, 3 levels. It's a really nice property. So that's just an example of another project. But and then I mentioned the nonprofit services that we have. Right now, we have funding for access to free medicine at St. Vincent de Paul Pharmacy for any resident who's income qualified, as well as expanded access to fresh produce through Free Store Food Bank in 18 pantries outside of the city. Let's see, we also have a foreclosure prevention program that's funded. It will be funded again for legal services only because we have other funding to help people pay their mortgages through the county's American Rescue Plan money. But those are examples of services that are open to any resident that's living in one of our communities. So, but let me switch to the mini grants if you want to. Yeah, there we go. This is a program we started in 2015, and we found that we were giving money to local governments, and they were kind of just spreading it like peanut butter all over, or filling a gap. You know, I felt we were like spreading it all over the county and not really doing anything impactful. And there was not a lot of engagement and talking about what we can do with the funding 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. So we also wanted to increase the capacity for the communities such as yours that are smaller that don't have a planning department. So we started with a $20,000 maximum. We upped it to $40,000 maximum, but it's a grant program that as a participating jurisdiction, you have access to $40,000 every year. You can compete for this grant. And it could be historic preservation. It could be looking at a specific property and trying to figure out the best reuse. And we did some work in Mount Healthy. We looked at one specific business, one block in the business district with some redevelopment ideas. Addiston is going to be funded for a water system capital improvement plan. They've not ever had their pipes scoped and done a replacement plan, and figured out what that cost will be, as well as looking at ways to improve the efficiencies for operating their water department, so their water system. So those are some examples. I will say that Mariemont joined the program 2 years ago, and they're getting their second mini grant tomorrow. So,
Not Mariemont.
I'm sorry, Madeira. I'm sorry. So Madeira joined 2 years ago, and so they're able to receive funding to help with the business redevelopment for their downtown area, and then their prior plan was for traffic calming and some street traffic issues. So the sky's the limit as far as the options. I would say the only thing we wouldn't fund is an analysis of your city staffing, something that's so general government specific that it would not be creating jobs or giving us ideas for other funding projects. There's a link on there with the link to, here we go, so a couple other projects that we've got that more are online as well. So this is the Emerald Green that was plan that was redeveloped a couple of years ago. And I believe they're implementing some of that. I'm not exactly sure where the plan is I think they have a private developer for some of it. Anyway, okay, the next large program, this is our largest program. It's Community and Economic Development Assistance Program. I don't come up with these acronyms. I'm the worst bureaucrat. I hate them. So people call it CDEP. But this is up to $300,000 in a grant or a loan for an economic development project or a community development project. I have to apologize. That text is super small. So I'll give you some recent projects that we've done. We've extended and widened Riesenberg Avenue in Reading to open up 3 commercial spots. One is the MSD storm sewer, a plant there that they couldn't get trucks to do their upgrade to be in compliance with the EPA consent decree because the road was in such disrepair. And so we widened it and deepened it so it could take the weight of the commercial vehicles. And then there are also 2 pieces of land that are now clean and got the bill of health from EPA to build new warehouse or office development. One was Cincinnati Can, and then the other was Cincinnati Drum, maybe? Cincinnati Tool? No, that's General Tool. General Tool Company, we funded it last year. They got a $300,000 grant and loan, was 50-50, to help the city relocate their public works department so General Tool could expand because they were getting a new contract with the Navy. But then COVID hit. So now the money's back in here to be redistributed through the competitive process. We can't sit on money for 2 years while they're working out the details. Let's see, we had a problem property in North Bend, Ohio, that was a multifamily that had drug overdoses. I mean, people died from drug overdoses. There were fire calls, there were shots fired, and we were able to work with the village and the county prosecutor to negotiate an agreement so that the owner of the building would tear down the property. We would pay for 1/3, the village paid for 1/3, and he paid for 1/3, but there's a lien on the property for the public money. So when the property sells, both the village gets their money back, and then we put the money back in our pool to share it with other communities. Okay, so this is, there we go, there's the Riesenberg Avenue project that I mentioned. The next one's much more pretty. It's a mural at the Brentwood Bowl in Springfield Township. There's also a mural in Silverton on the building for women writing for a change. And then I think that's our second mural. We might have one more coming up, but that's in conjunction with Artworks. I'll mention that some other benefits of joining our program, we have a standing contract with the National Development Council. They are the experts in new market tax credits, historic tax credits, bond financing. They're a national CDFI, and we provide technical assistance using them to communities as needed. The first example was the Silverton AG 47 project, and we wanted to see, it was a little too late, but we wanted to find out, was it over-subsidized or under-subsidized? And we found out it was a little bit over-subsidized. So I don't remember all the details. I know there was some tax incentives, but they also sold the land, prepped the land, assembled land, tore everything down, and handed it to a developer, and then also gave tax incentives. So it's like, okay, maybe the national folks said, you could have tweaked this, like there wasn't that much of a gap. So from now on, we said we'd rather spend a couple $1,000s on this technical assistance and then have us save taxpayers' money, if it's $500,000 or even if it's $10,000, we want to make sure that we're getting the latest and greatest technical information from across the country. So we also use National Development Council for the affordable housing projects I talked about. So my team does the underwriting to make sure we have to see what the gap is, and then NDC provides a third-party eyes, wait a minute, you missed this, or you forgot to ask about that. So it's just a resource that we probably spend between $5,000 and $10,000 a year, but it's invaluable to make sure we're doing things right. And then we also work with several other partners in the economic development arena, Ready Cincinnati, the Port, HCDC, and then other developers. People call all the time. And so we're happy to make those connections and build some relationships to help Mariemont move forward. So this is the icing on this is the prize, I guess I should say. I estimated the funding would be between $26,000 and $30,000 per year. We're budgeting in 3 years, so right now we're in the 21, 22, 23 cycle. But if you were to join this summer, money would be available to you next April or May, and we would just do 2 years of the 3-year cycle. So we would say you would budget between $40,000 and $45,000. You would find a project that would cost between $40,000 and $45,000 to implement over 22 and 23. I think that's it. I'm ready to. Timeline. Okay. I mentioned that the deadline is this summer to pass a resolution and sign the cooperation agreement that HUD has prepared for us. And then in the fall, between September and December, we'll talk about possible projects. In December, you will post a public notice or have a public hearing. I'm not sure when our waivers died because of COVID. We were not requiring public hearings, but you basically educate your community and say, this is funding that we are entitled to. These are all the possible things we can use the money for. This is what we're planning to apply for. And we just need to have minutes to show that you had a public participation process. We've never, I've been here 6.5 years, we've never had an issue where a community wanted to do a project and it was eligible, but there was such an outcry that we said no. We're not going to tell you what to do. The commissioners, we're secondary government. We are here to honor your wishes, whatever your first priorities are, as long as it's eligible, that's what we approve the funding for. But we do want the transparency and the education for community members. Okay, let me stop there.
A quick question. You mentioned to us, I believe, in the last presentation during the committee meeting, that should we find ourselves in the position of not being able to come up with a project, that you have staff people or you have that we would meet with possibly to help us organize projects?
Oh, sure.
Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people we're your prepaid consultants. You pay your federal income taxes. That's what pays our salary. So absolutely. And then the other piece I forgot to mention is that if you don't have a project for a 3-year cycle or even a 6-year cycle, and you have a big project that comes up 6 years down the road, we're going to give you the funding then. So it's not like you have to use it or lose it. We have the ability to informally, kind of remember that, like Montgomery didn't ask for money for 10 years, and they wanted $60,000 to tear down a car dealership. And so we were able to give them the full $60,000 because they hadn't asked for any funding for a decade. And then we handled all of the Davis-Bacon and the weekly pay rolls and all that stuff. But yeah, definitely. And we have a new staff member who has, I'm really proud of this new hire. She has her master's from Cornell in historic preservation, and she's a Cincinnati native, and she would have a field day helping you guys. So she's like, really? You're going to Mariemont? So, yeah.
I have a couple questions. So with the Montgomery car dealer thing, did it matter what they were putting in its place?
It had to be, we qualified it as slum blight, as eliminating an outdated building.
Okay.
But then they created jobs. They redeveloped the area, and there are jobs there. So if we wanted to, we could reopen our project and put in the job creation. But just demolishing an outdated building it meets the national objective.
And then a secondary question I have is, would rehabilitating statuary in a park that has historical significance,
I'd have to check on that.
because we have our statuary, the kissing statue, the family statuary that you see, has undergone significant wear and tear due to weather.
I'm going to rely on Claire, who's the historic preservation expert. I know we can do it for buildings, I just don't know about statues.
It's a public park, you know,
Yeah.
so I'm just
I would
curious.
assume so, but I just want to make sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Julie, one thing you wanted to possibly address, people are going to wonder why we haven't been in this program in the past, and the rumor always was this was somehow attached to a forced affordable housing
Right.
that we would be forced to take in Mariemont if we were in this program, and I think you addressed that pretty loudly during the last meeting we
Yes.
had with you. So if you
Probably
could just go
too
through that
long.
again.
I'll give you a short version of that long story. I was so excited to be here in my first in-person meeting 10 days ago. I was like, you know, just like so a little more controlled. Back in 2011, there was a big public, display of racism, I'll go with that, where there were some members of the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority Board spatting with each other. And one person made a comment to another person that we don't want any more of those people here in Green Township. Why don't you get them in Mount Washington? And HUD found out, the Justice Department found out, it turned into a mess, and it was all over the newspapers and this was a building argument and fight. There was a lot of, frankly, unprofessional stuff going on in public meetings. And so ultimately, the Department of Justice sued Green Township because it was their trustee who made the comment. And then Green Township countersued the Department of Justice. And then HUD had got involved and they sued Green Township. And then Green Township countersued HUD. So there were 3 agencies involved. And the narrative at the time was Green Township is involved in the county's HUD program, and because of that, they have to take public housing. I explained the other day that HUD has 6 different divisions, and they don't talk to each other. So public and Indian housing is one division, and we're community planning and development. Our people don't even know the people doing the work over here. They're in different offices around the country, et cetera. What happened was, because of the blatant racist comment, there was a consent decree, and there was an agreement that Green Township had to allow 32 units of affordable, they had to allow CMHA to buy or rehab 32 units of housing, or to add 32 units of housing. And so they ended up buying 8 4-family buildings. But Green Township had no control over that. They were zoned properly, they were privately sold. I mean, there was no public coercion, or I don't know what the right word would be. I mean, there was a consent decree, but it started out at 800 units, and then, you know how things go. So that's what happened back in 2012, 13, 14. Which is why when I came to work at the county, people had quit and then joined back in, and they hadn't spent their money. So I was like, okay, we gotta spend this money. The other thing that I wanna comment on is the Housing Authority is retracting their footprint. The way that HUD funds public housing has changed dramatically, and they've underfunded the capital needs for public housing for decades. They overfunded operating. This is crazy, but no matter how many people were living in public housing, the Housing Authority got the same check every month. And so they said, wait a minute, if you have unoccupied units, you shouldn't get paid for housing those people. But at the same time, they underfunded capital. So in the last 5 years, there've been this rental demonstration program that the Housing Authority can use home funding like from us, and other bond financing and low-income housing tax credits to bring their properties up to code and bring them up to useful life for another 20 years, and then sell them. So that's what CMHA is doing. They're going through the RAD process. We are funding one of them right now, but they have 3 or 4 underway right now, and 5 more planned over the next couple of years. And 20 years from now, or even 10 years from now, they won't own anything. They also have a pretty big inventory, maybe 300 or 400 single-family homes or small 4 units or duplexes, and they're in the process of fixing those up and selling those as well. They can't keep up. The cost of going from Beachmont to Harrison, Indiana, or Harrison, Ohio, Beachmont Avenue to Harrison, it's just, they don't have the staff, they don't have the system set up for maintenance. I mean, if you were property managers, you wouldn't want to have property all over the county, scattered site. So that is something that is underway as well.
Okay, but to summarize, there's no strings attached to this program that we're gonna get forced on a project
No.
that we may not want.
Absolutely not. The only words in the cooperation agreement say that you have to further fair housing, and you have to do that anyway. So there's absolutely no strings attached. And in fact, when we have a community that does not participate, the money goes to another state. So it's not like the money like from our 6 communities would go to Cincinnati. It gets put back into the formula. So, yeah.
I think that it boiled down to there's a conflation of 2 things. The HUD name, got put on this, this consent decree that they were being forced, to the housing, which the public housing, right? And so from that, we were administering HUD, we're the county's department, we are forcing these houses upon Green Township. So there was a conflation of that thought, and from there, we had a few communities from that standpoint drop out. So, again, once the information, the news gets out beyond the news media, we can kind of go through there. But Joy's been able to bring back in communities, really tell a full story, and tell the full benefits, that you get out of joining the program. And like I said, in the heat of the moment, a lot of things are said, but we're out here to try to help explain the situation. And it was obviously it was a difficult time. Joy wasn't here, but she's helped rebuild this and into almost all of the communities that we serve. We don't serve the city of Cincinnati.
They have their own funding. I didn't mention that.
So we only have a few community remaining, and we'd love you to join. So maybe I just wanted to add that.
Okay, thanks.
I was in the position of being the ex-wife to the guy who works at HUD. My ex-husband works for HUD, and he was the field office director for Cincinnati. And when all that was going on, there were public meetings, and my mom called me and said, "Tell Jim not to speak to us at those public meetings. We don't want anybody to think that we know anybody at HUD." I was like, "Okay, Mom, sure." So, anyway.
Any other questions? We good? I want to thank you both, Joy,
Yeah, thank you very much.
Jim, for coming out here and
Pleasure.
giving us this presentation. I think it's very worthwhile, and I think we will be taking this up at our next meeting.
No, well, the committee report's here, and
Yeah.
we're supposed to get the okay of the committee report.
Was it?
So,
Do you have the business card?
Let me know, will you?
Thank you very much.
yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you very much.
If you allow, I think, Joy, you said that they could compete for programs starting next year.
Yes.
Can they start with the mini grants and CDAP? CDAP will start in the fall. Can they compete for those?
No, the mini grants in the spring.
Okay.
Mini grants in May.
All right, so CDAP is in the fall?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
so they
yeah.
can compete for that?
Not in CDAP, not, just 2022.
All right, next year.
Yes.
Okay. just
Yeah.
to clarify.
Yeah, our grant starts March 1st. Our grant.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll get out of your way.
Thank you. Thanks.
Or you send it up to James.
Okay. It's pretty easy. It's marcylewis@gmail.com, marcylewiscouncil@gmail.com.
Okay.
You can, yeah, you can
Thank you.
find all our email addresses on the village website if you need it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next up, under communications, is the resident committee to review the fire and EMS proposals. We have a rather extensive list here of criteria under which we're proposing to set this up. We're not here tonight basically to name names, to put the names in. Essentially, we're just going to give a quick review of these,
Try to finalize
of the structure.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have a comment you wish to make about that?
No, no, I just, you guys. have all
Everybody's
had
read
it.
this? Yeah.
So
okay.
again, the intent here is we wanted, Bill and I have talked about this for a while, about trying to have a committee of residents involved, who can be involved, working directly with the consultant. So, and the consultant, Mr. Kramer, will be here at the next meeting also, just to give an update on what he's doing so far. But this is a means of trying to make sure that residents do have input to this whole process as well, on the front end, not on the back end, on the front end, in terms of sharing concerns they may have or things like that. They'd like him to include in the analysis. So,
Yeah, to reiterate, we are planning, or we're hoping, I guess, I mean, it's in the works, I would think, that we are going to have Mr. Kramer come in here at next council meeting to basically update us and explain where he is in the process. And of course, at that time, any resident that wishes to come in here and ask questions of Mr. Kramer, I'm sure is, more than welcome to do so. That's kind of where we are in that process.
next meeting.
Next council meeting. All right, so we're all good in that. And then I'm assuming at that meeting, though, we will be naming names to put together this committee.
Yes, yes. So tonight, the goal is, let's try and finalize the wording. about
Yes.
What's the charter document look like for this committee?
Okay.
Of, again, 5 to 7 residents
Yeah.
being involved in this.
Okay.
So you guys have had a chance to read it. Do you have any comments, suggestions? I got yours, Maggie, about the typo there, so I fixed that.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
I mean, my personal opinion is I would lean toward 5, just because it's big meetings with complex issues like this tend to be long and complex. And I think 5 people who are a good mix of like age range and, kind of dispersed across various pieces of Mariemont who see different things, maybe just easier to deal with in meetings, but.
My only thought about that is that conceptually, that's good, but I'm just wondering that we should probably name 7 because not all 5
If
are
they
going to
don't
be
all
able
make
to
it.
attend.
Yep.
And that, that way you would have,
Extra
5 to
people.
6
I
or
think
so
7 is better.
at-
I mean,
attending.
to limit it to 5 on such a
On such a
hotbed
big
issue.
yeah, exactly.
It's just not good optics, in my opinion.
Well, people might, there might be more than 5 people that are interested in being on this.
Well, I mean, the number has to be limited, we can't have
Right, but
a
I'm saying
dozen
if there's
people, But we do want to have a good
25
cross-section of
people.
residents on this.
Sure.
I mean, not only geographically throughout the village, but, I want to have, male, female, I want to have, the north, the south thing. And, by having 7, that,
That
is a
would
little bit
cover
of a
it,
problem, yeah. But I think for tonight, what we're saying is, you look over the outline of how we're talking about structuring it, and when we come in here next meeting, we're going to name names and,
Hopefully, as a group, then aligned to look
yeah,
at names.
to do it, yeah, okay.
So my one question is, okay, we really haven't communicated that we're going to set this thing up. And so should we immediately try to get something out that says we're going to have this committee? And if anyone's interested, please submit their name, maybe a couple paragraphs about their background qualifications and/or why they have an interest in doing this. And that'll help us sort through.
Yeah, that's not a
With
bad
the
idea,
candidates.
because, I mean, up to this point, it's basically been a word of mouth process,
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
put-
and I tried to go through the directory and say, okay,
Yeah.
but that's not very effective. Let's open it up, solicit names of people who are interested in doing it.
Right.
And then we can go through that list, But again, I think a couple paragraphs from the people,
Okay.
that describe, because we may not know everyone.
Yeah, I know, and they may
and/or-
not know either out there. There could be people sitting out there that are really not in tune to what we're doing, and they may have
Right.
want to have an input.
And again, just.
Right, saying, I didn't know you guys were doing this.
Right, it doesn't have to be a full resume, just a couple paragraphs that, give us an idea who they are.
Yeah.
And then a couple a paragraph about why they're interested in doing this.
Why would we do that when we didn't do that for the pool commission or any other committees that we have?
Probably because I didn't think about it at the time, so.
Honest answer.
A lot to be creative here.
I think that's creative. I think it's
I
bureaucratic.
see Terry Gaines sitting here, and I know that Terry's been coming to the last couple council meetings because there's a group of condominium residents that he represents essentially who have asked him to kind of bird dog this issue and keep them apprised. So he might be a fellow that would want to put his name into it, I think.
again, let's do the list and see what we have.
But Joe, I think that's a good idea. So could we could use like the website and the
Use the website, we
list,
can use the mailing
distribution
list.
we have?
Yeah.
That next door,
And hopefully, there are those residents sitting out there that will be reading the minutes from this meeting or watching us, and we're announcing it here, and this is not for the first time that we've been announcing this.
Yeah, we've
So,
been
yeah,
talking about
there's multiple ways we can try to get this out.
We do have a communication problem
Right.
about trying to get stuff like this out in a hurry. So, I mean, if we
Well-
try, if we use our email list and we get it on the website and we post something on Nextdoor, I don't think we're going to do a flyer drop on this one, because that's usually about the only way we have found to actually communicate stuff to residents is put something on their doorstep. I don't know if we have time to do that, but,
Well, we do a flyer drop, and we're only trying to get 7 people. I mean, that
Right.
could become a problem right there.
but again, just give everybody an
I-
opportunity to weigh in if it,
Okay.
Well, and the community leaders too. Like, I mean, Kim Beach has the whole
Yeah,
business
and
group.
we
there's
have been
MPPG,
communicating with those
there's
people. We have, yeah. so,
MPF, like,
right.
make sure you're contacting the leaders of these organizations, because their membership.
Well, and as Mr. Gaines is
Right,
sitting here
and
now
all the condo
representing
people,
the.
so they have a
yeah.
membership
Yes.
distribution list, they can forward it also.
Right, right.
yeah, doesn't Rick have the ability, Growley, doesn't Rick Growley have the ability to get to the condo associations to let them know for all the buildings? Isn't there an email list there? Okay. Again, our communication systems are. Okay.
Well, let's, yeah, we're not here to
Yeah,
discuss
let's-
the issue, we're just here, for tonight. But, sir, you do represent, or you communicate with all the condominium associations at all the buildings, is that correct?
I am working on organizing something that was previously organized, and that's kind of fallen by the wayside.
Okay,
And that was a blanket condominium association.
Oh, okay.
called
I see.
officers
Yeah, okay,
periodically.
I see. Yeah, okay,
Okay,
okay.
good.
Okay, well, to Joe's point, we do need to communicate this and get this word out, and we should.
It's not a perfect system by
I
any
do,
stretch.
the one thing is, I gotta be honest, the next door thing makes me a little like, ugh,
Yeah, we're not using that.
No. I
So
think
we've been
just-
trying to sit there and guide people to sign up for our, for the email list that we
Emails,
maintain
yeah.
and stuff like that. So, we've been trying to guide people.
Well,
to
maybe
use
we
that.
can use the social media between the police Facebook site, the fire department, the Facebook site, communicate it that way too. I mean, just so it gets out.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, not create a situation where
Well,
we're gonna
I-
spend days to do a flyer drop. How do you
Right,
back
right.
off and still try to get it communicated as effective as we can on a short time frame?
Well, I think we
Agreed,
got a lot of word of mouth here.
We do have word of mouth going, yeah, so it's not.
Okay.
This
you know,
isn't
complete
new.
blank, yeah, okay.
So did anybody have, so let's go back, did anybody have any other changes or comments or things like that that we would want to incorporate into this document?
Well, I mean, you and I've already communicated about, so does anybody else that have looked it over, any thoughts that you might want to add, subtract?
Really?
Because we're trying to finalize that tonight, so then we can go ahead
No,
and
I
move to the
think
next
it's
stage.
A good statement. I think it,
I like it.
Okay,
Okay, I think we're good.
and again, when it comes to the names, we'll be working that as a team, just like we did with the swim pool task force.
Yeah.
So,
going blind.
It's little,
There you go.
I've done that a while ago.
you got it.
We're great.
what?
Okay, so we're good on that document? Good.
All right, then the last item on communications is Joe's, but we're going to move that down into the committee reports when, and we'll read the report and he can make comments and we can talk about that then. So that concludes that part of the thing. All right, permission to address council. Does anyone wish to address council? Mr. Van Stone.
I'm Bob Van Stone, 4050 Lytle Woods Place. I'm a little confused by the council position on the chain link fences. 2 meetings ago, Maggie read a list of criteria for those fences, and then last week she proposed treating all of them as nuisance requiring immediate removal. The recommendation was to have the building department send letters to all property owners with chain link fences, require them to remove them in a relatively short period of time, 3 to 6 months. My first question is what caused that? Seemed to be a pretty sudden change. It seems to me that this approach may place an undue financial burden on some homeowners and property owners. It is also interesting that most of this burden would be on those north of Wooster Pike. Those property owners might be a little bit confused when they have to remove theirs, but chain link fences could still be used at the tennis courts in the high school. And I realize a different function, but I'm just saying, I would like council to consider going back to the criteria-based removal and not, but still not permit the installation of any new chain link fences. When a citizen reports or a building department representative identifies a fence in disrepair, meaning not meeting the criteria, the building department can send out a letter requiring the removal of that fence. This would possibly lessen the immediate expense to the homeowners and let them, or apartment owners, and let them do some long-term planning for the removal and or replacement with a non-chain link fence. And these criteria could be placed, could be approved by council and put at the end of what I call Bill's ordinance, which was passed for the American Heritage, but it put in there a way where you could put building guidelines, council would approve them, and they'd be treated as law. That's just, I don't have a chain link fence, but it just sounded like a sudden switch, and I could see there might be a fair amount of uproar if lots of people get these letters saying they have to be out by the fall, or, anyway.
Thanks, Bob. You know, didn't we have this discussion, though, and we were talking about this? Because Joe, basically, I thought you
I
were.
wasn't here last meeting, so.
He
I'm
Well,
sure what you
not
talked
last,
about
not
when you
last
passed it,
meeting,
so.
not, but when this issue was being discussed, and you were sort of pushing for a criteria-based standard for this, am I
Yeah,
correct?
I think it's, you know, again, I wasn't here last week for or last meeting for the discussion, but I think it's a little bit heavy-handed to tell people they gotta take them out right now. I mean, if I had a chain link fence, I probably wouldn't be real happy about it, especially if it was well-maintained.
Or
Is that what we're
new,
doing, Maggie?
or new.
So just to clarify, so this wasn't, I mean, we did revisit it, but this was a 2017 decision that the
Right.
council approved at the time.
Right.
And then the ordinances were just never gone through with. So that was an oversight. So if we've changed our approach at this point, I mean, we've met in committee and talked it through, and the committee just affirmed the prior decision, which was to mitigate them all and get rid of them. I think the kind of proof of concept came when we've had this ongoing rule of condition that never was acted upon by the building department. And so we ended up with a significant portion of our historic district full of dilapidated, rusty, dangerous, really disgusting looking chain link fences. So at the time, you know, it's in 2017, it was put into the Rules and Law Committee to find a way to, it was legitimately put to me, find a way to get rid of chain link fences, because we clearly aren't keeping our eye on the ball as a building department. We can't handle driving around and evaluating these chain link fences. If we just get rid of them, it will solve our problem. So that's why the decision, you know, we did an evaluation of the chain link fences and how many there were, and Ed looked up the precedent and told us we could just mitigate them. So at that point in time, that decision was made that way, and approved by council, but then the legislation was never put into place. And so we just revisited the decision, affirmed the decision, and that's kind of the direction we're going. If we think that our changes to the building department will put us in a better place to have somebody driving around and evaluating chain link fences on a basis that's acceptable to everyone, and then forcing mitigation at that time based on condition, that's, I mean, I have no emotional stake in this. It's just that that's what, you know, we decided would be the best solution. If we think we can do that with this new building department setup that we have, that's fine. We've proved that we cannot do that the way we currently are set up. So that's the reason we've gone the way we've gone.
So the ordinance as written now essentially doesn't really allow for any conditions. It's basically.
It's a mitigation.
Just a mitigation.
Yep.
But there in terms of, there was a chance for them to, again, they can always appeal.
They can appeal. They can be given a variance.
And I thought we also gave the building administrator, whoever's in that role, the chance to
Whoever,
to say.
whoever our local, either appointed or hired person who's the building administrator or assistant or whatever we call them at the time in Mariemont does have discretion. So, I mean, if they come to planning commission and they're given a variance and then, but then again, we're back into somebody, you know, Are they given a variance forever so they can let trees grow through it and it can rust and we don't care?
Well, and also they come before the planning commission and get a variance, that people sitting on the planning commission are gonna wanna know by what criteria are we gonna give you that variance? You know, we're gonna have to go look at the fence and make some kind of a
Right, and then
determination.
there's a determination based on something
Now,
that we don't
based on
have
what,
written.
though? We don't have anything, you know, we're gonna be freewheeling it at that point.
Well, you would write a policy. So one thing that and this was something about the council that we've worked really hard over the last couple of years to improve, and we've made strides, but haven't solved all of our problems, is that we had very few processes. And, you know, we had a very little infrastructure in our government. And so we're slowly building that back now. And so if we, you know, in the building department have a policy for how this is handled, and it's written and approved, not because a case came to us and we made it then, but ahead of time, because this is how we want things to work.
Sure.
And we have a vision, then you can apply that, and it's equitable and it's enforceable, and I don't think people will be trying to sue us. If you don't have that and we continue the way we've been, I mean, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, the current process is broken, as you said.
Yeah.
We're not enforcing what we have in the books, and we don't have any qualification, criteria type of thing as well.
I don't think there's a book in the building department where someone who takes that job can open it and say, okay, this is how I do this. This is how I talk to this resident when they call me furious about a chain link fence, right? So, but we should.
Who would be furious? Yeah, I know, I mean, obviously, the intent behind this is good and positive. You know, the condition of a lot of the chain link fences, especially in the historic district, needed to be addressed.
Right.
And that's what we were attempting to do here. Now, have we struck upon a perfect solution? I'm not really sure. I mean, obviously, there's a little confusion here. Maybe we should, you know, this, as written, we should go with this and then refine it as we go forward when we hear from residents, I suppose.
I mean, I kind of think that was our approach,
Yeah.
is that when we gave the discretion to the person who's sitting in the chair of the building commissioner in the moment, you know, and
Right.
they can utilize their planning and zoning, or, you know, their appropriate boards to handle decisions, and we have Ed to consult with.
Right.
I think we're okay, except that we do need a written policy ahead of time, like before this ordinance becomes a thing, that would dictate how that's handled equitably for people.
All right, so if I'm hearing correctly, the ordinance won't go in effect until when? 2 more meetings?
We have to meet, yeah. we
Well,
have
and
to
then
read
30
it.
days after it's
Past that.
approved, 30
And then
days
30
after it's
days past
approved,
that.
too.
So we'll have somebody hired at that point, right?
Yes.
And so
But we don't
then-
have a building commissioner anymore.
Well, XPEX will be our building commissioner.
Well, we'll also have a zoning officer.
Well,
Hopefully
we'll
by
have
the
a
end,
zoning
hopefully by the end of
officer as well.
tonight, we'll
Yeah.
vote on that stuff and we'll
So-
know where we're going.
I thought, you know, what you
This is
said in
mine or
council
yours?
meeting, because you read the criteria, I think that should be a good starting point to hand to whoever.
Is the building, whoever is in
Yeah,
the chair, yeah.
because
Is this your copy or my
clearly
copy?
you've done the legwork
I
and,
think
you
it's
know,
yours.
do that. And I think that's a reasonable starting point, so we don't do it all over again.
Right.
So I'd like to make sure that somehow gets transmitted to whoever.
And we can do that.
Well, we can do
That's-
that, yeah, I mean, we can do that. In fact, we might even get, you know, MPF to participate in that sense.
Well, again,
In their
we've got a
bailiwick.
first cut. Let's get,
Yeah.
to your point
Yeah, I
before,
mean,
Bill,
it's- I
let's
don't
get
wanna
something
overwork
going
it. It's-
and then continue to
Yeah, we
improve
can
upon
refine
it.
as we go, yeah.
All right, so who's going to try to work on the criteria?
No, we already had a first
have
cut.
it. We
That's when
can-
you
yeah.
weren't here. So we did, so Eileen did that. She laid out the criteria type of stuff.
So we got something to start with.
Yeah.
We have it on paper.
And, but she also said these
We can
could,
look at that the next meeting, hopefully, or,
it was it in one of the
It was in the
council-
last council packet.
Okay.
I don't know, so here's the other thing, is because of the lack of infrastructure, council ends up doing a lot of the weeds work. I don't know that we need a council to discuss this. I mean, it's really, you know, Eileen is competent and capable. She put together something, she made a recommendation. You know, I think maybe whoever, I guess she's not gonna be in that chair anymore, but she could work with Bill, or
TBD.
somebody could work with Bill, or
Somebody, I mean,
Expedex
right.
could review it for us and say this is fair, and Ed could make sure we're not saying anything insane. And then that is it. I don't know that we need to stay this deep in the weeds as an advisory board.
Yeah, I don't think we need to sit here and point by point come up with criteria. You're
Right.
right, we can be presented with it and make it, you know,
Well, and again, that's already happened.
yeah, and I think, right, I think that's partially, well, we got the bones of it, I think, or I'm not sure it's perfect, but,
But
yeah.
I like your idea about reaching out to XPACs too, once we've signed a contract with them and asked them
Yeah.
for their thoughts and if they have any examples.
Like, just show it to them and say, this is our thinking for, you know, granting variances to this thing we put in place, and
Yeah, Maggie, I think your point's really well taken, because I don't think that we as a council need to be so involved in the administrative functions that
Right.
our building department, whatever it is, should be handling, you know, and then if there's issues, then maybe we can fine tune them.
Yeah,
But-
fight too.
You know, hopefully,
I mean, as long as what we come up with is reasonable.
Right.
That we're not asking people to take out brand-new fences.
Right,
or
right,
or
right.
somewhat new fences.
well, and if they have a brand new fence, the question was really, how did
How'd
they
they get
get a
it?
brand new fence,
Yeah.
right? There is a brand new fence in the historic department, like right outside of Ann Buttonbecker Park, that went up when the lady saw this landlord in 2017 taking down all of his. We had back then that chain link fences may not be put up at that point in time. Like, I don't know how that, I don't know
Well,
how,
I can
I
tell
don't
you
know
how it
how
happened,
somebody
because she
has a
went
new
ahead and put the
fence.
fence up, she didn't apply for a building
don't come in for a permit,
and
yeah.
and nobody followed up.
But nobody drove around to notice that? Like,
Well-
while they're watching this
No,
landlord take
that's-
down
you're
77
right,
fences?
That's another can of worms that we've had a problem
Like,
with. Yeah.
that's the structure that has to get built here. That's-
I mean, I think everybody's in agreement, no future fences, chain link fences.
yeah.
We just have to figure out
It's
how to
already
handle
in
the
the,
old.
That's
it's already
already-
in the
yeah,
code.
we already have that.
We
Okay,
had that for
But
years.
again,
I think
no
everybody
no
should
future,
agree.
we have to figure out what to do with the existing.
There you
To be
go.
reasonable during that process.
Yeah. All right, are we good on this? We good on this?
Still at permission to address council.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we got lost in
fired
that
up.
discussion. Does anyone else wish to address council? Mr. Gaines, Dennis, nobody? Are we all good? Okay, all right, moving on. Let's pay some bills. Everybody reviewed the bills? You got any questions about the bills? A lot of bills?
Bills. A lot of bills.
A lot of bills. All right, then I need a motion and a second to pay the bills, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Zolo.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
All right, let's pay those bills. All right, next on the agenda, now is when we're going to do the committee reports, and I think Joe,
Do you want me to read mine?
oh, finance first? Yeah, okay, Rob, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sure. Okay.
This is why, this is why Tony's not
I'm
here.
totally fine with reading my stuff. Yeah, that's why he's not here. So, the Finance Committee met on Friday, June 4th, 2021, at 2:30 PM to discuss Mariemont possibly entering a cooperation agreement with Hamilton County, which would give us access to their Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG, as was just presented. Present at the meeting were Finance Committee members Rob Bartlett, Kelly Rankin, and Joe Stelzer, Mayor Bill Brown, and Joy Pearson and James Noyes from the Hamilton County Planning and Development Department. CDGB is one of 3 grants that Hamilton County receives from U.S. Housing and Development. In 2021, CDGB received $3.5 million. Mariemont is one of only 6 Hamilton County jurisdictions that currently does not participate in CDGB. The 41 jurisdictions in Hamilton County that do participate include Glendale, Amberley Village, Wyoming, Fairfax, Newtown, and Madeira. If Mariemont joins the program, CDGB will receive more money from HUD. Mariemont, in turn, will automatically have access to 40% to 45% of that money. 40% is estimated to be $13,117 a year, and 45% is to be $14,756 a year. The CDGB grant money must be used for specific projects, for example, projects that benefit senior citizens, ADA compliance, historic building preservation and renovation, and code enforcement property maintenance, to name a few. Also, we can let the amount build up over time. It's not use it or lose it. And to be clear, there are no requirements for creating low-income housing. Joining will also give us access to 2 other grant programs that we could apply for: mini planning grants, which can be used for projects such as, sorry, that's a typo.
That's all right, that's all right.
For projects such as business district plans, sewer system replacement plans, strategic planning, or identifying community development needs. And the Community and Economic Development Assistance Program, CDAP, which can be used for large-scale strategic projects for economic development. To participate in CDGB requires that council pass a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement of cooperation with Hamilton County, and then the mayor sign the agreement of cooperation. in order for Mariemont to have access to funds in spring/early summer 2022, estimated to be between $26,234 and $29,513. We need to submit the resolution and the signed agreement by July 16th, 2021. The Finance Committee is recommending that we enter an agreement of cooperation with Hamilton County. If council agrees, the village solicitor will draw up the resolution for council to vote on at the next meeting. In order to meet the July 16th deadline, the resolution will need to be passed on an emergency basis. Respectfully submitted, Rob Bartlett, Kelly Rankin, and Joe Stelzer.
All right, you've heard the report. I need a motion and a second to accept the report.
So moved.
A second?
Second, all right. Any discussion regarding this? I mean, we had a very nice presentation in here earlier. I don't know whether anybody would have any additional questions. It
One thing I would
seems
just
to me-
throw is Ed has also reviewed the cooperation agreement, and
Find it be acceptable.
so no issues there from a legal standpoint also.
I just want Rob to say CDGB 10 times fast.
With the clock going,
I mean,
yeah.
I was like, can I even say it once?
Yeah, that's a
I
challenge.
mean, my impression of this, my thing is that essentially, because I know she sort of went out of her way to reiterate that there's no strings attached to
Right.
this in terms of, Section 8 housing or, any other.
Or any, financial
Like
burden
that.
on our part.
I mean, what started this process last year, we heard that they were passing out pretty good sums of money to some of our neighboring communities, and then we found out we weren't a member,
Right.
so we weren't eligible.
Right.
And so we won't, we can't go back and get that COVID money that they got last year. But this sets us up for the future, and if there's additional things like this, we can participate in it, so.
I made a list of like 8 things. I feel like we won the lottery.
I-
Like this is,
well, I
I
think-
wish I could be here to vote for it.
I think our
So
biggest
exciting.
problem is going to figure out what projects to
Which
go
thing to
after.
do, right?
What projects, well, and that's what I was kind of asking. I mean,
Right.
it's like we may have to go to them. to have
Bathrooms
them-
at Anmont and Becker. It was like,
Or something, yeah. This is almost like finding money in the street. You know what I
Literally.
mean? You're walking down the street, and there's a $5 bill. Are you going to pick it up, or are you going to walk over it?
I mean-
say we pick it up.
It's going to take a little bit of work because we're going to have to compete against the other communities for
right.
whatever projects we come up with. So
Fine.
we want to
For
put
the
the
other
best
grants.
one forward.
yeah.
The other grants, but the other money that we've mentioned here, the, $13,117 a year to $14,756.
We get
There's
that,
no,
right?
there's no
That's just what you
competition for
get.
that.
There's some pots of money, there's no, we get it automatically. There's other pots of money that we have to put a good presentation in front of them to score better than the other. But I think we get, one of the things I heard loud and clear was they like historical rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Well, and they got the.
And
new
there's
hire.
another aspect to this
likes
that,
it.
really didn't come clear in the presentation. They can help us find new market tax credits and historical rehabilitation tax credits, which is, if we ever do a major project with the historic district, we're going to need those tax credits to be able to partner with the developer to, basically bring those units up to current standards.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
and
there's
I've dealt
that,
with,
there's, like-
I've dealt with those types of tax credits before in some historic structure rehab, and the money is, there's substantial sums out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
in the
it-
process.
yeah, It can provide an enormous incentive to a developer,
Right.
that I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're all pretty much on this. On roll call, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye,
aye.
sorry,
Did you want to make a comment, or?
no.
Ms. Palazzolo?
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Stelzer?
Aye.
We'll accept that report. All right, Joe, moving on then to, you can handle this, what you wanted to do, the batting cage
Well,
first?
I think it's interesting. If you have council members who have to read the reports, maybe it'll be shorter in the future. Not with Rob.
Not me.
Wow. Zing.
Bring
All
it.
right, the
He's
first one is
thorough.
on the Bell Tower
No,
batting
there's
cage
a
and turf
different
field
word.
installation. The Health and Recreation Committee met on June 10th to discuss replacement of the Bell Tower batting cage and field turf installation. Present at the meeting were Health and Recreation Committee members Stelzer, Graves, and Lewis, as well as Mayor Brown. Several years ago, the Bell Tower batting cage was destroyed by a falling tree. The village negotiated a settlement with our insurance company that will partially fund the replacement of the batting cage. Mariemont Recreation and Mariemont Knothole, I'm kind of combining them into something I call Recreation, proposed a conceptual plan with the site for the replacement of the batting cage. They also proposed the installation of donated field turf inside the batting cage in a small area outside the batting cage. This additional area can be utilized for many purposes when the rest of the bell tower grass is wet or muddy. Recreation is seeking approval of the conceptual plan only so they can proceed with fundraising and final plans. Recreation believes the current project will be fully funded by the insurance settlement and donations. Recreation also will begin working on a master plan for the entire bell tower complex, including a solution to the bathroom and parking issues at this facility. The committee discussed the pros and cons of the proposal and voted unanimously to recommend to full council that the village approve the conceptual plan for the area behind the A baseball field at the Bell Tower. Respectfully submitted, Joe Stelzer, Davia Graves, and Marcy Lewis.
All right, you've heard the report. I need a motion and a second to accept the report, please.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
All right, Rob's got the second. All right, discussion on this. I think, again, this is.
Let me just go through a couple quick concepts here so everybody's on the same page. So I got the Google Maps out here, and what we're talking about is this area down here in the corner. Everybody knows there are the 3 baseball fields in the Bell Tower, but that is the batting cage that basically is completely destroyed by the tree fall. There's a shed back there. So this is the area we're only talking about at this point, and you know, some of that would be field turf. I think they also, in the council packet, I gave you a detail about what they're looking at doing. So the batting cage would rotate from that spot to go parallel with the existing shed, and that would be the field turf area. We're getting the field turf donated by Mott's because it's coming off the fields at Blue Ash. The only thing we'll have to do is figure out how to get some base down underneath it, and we've had some conversations with John already. So we need to get more of a detailed plan put together, exactly how it's going to come together, who's going to do what, and who's going to pay for what. But the Recreation Association believes they can raise all the money. They've already got a $5,000 commitment from one individual, and they believe they can raise the rest. And you put that with the, whether it's $3,500 or $4,000.
$4,400 if we submit the
Yeah,
invoices.
yeah. So I have no doubt they're going to raise the money for this project.
yeah.
And so it's just a matter, at this point, just to get everybody to agree to the conceptual plan. And we're going to move the batting cage, and we're going with field turf in that area.
Yeah.
So, any questions?
No.
No.
Good.
No, I mean, I think we've pretty,
Good
this
work.
is.
Yeah.
So we're going to vote on the report, right? Accept the report.
Yeah, accept the
Okay.
report.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Palazzolo.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
All right, so we'll accept that report. All right, then, outsourcing the pool concession stand.
All right. The Health and Recreation Committee met on June 10th to discuss the outsource of the pool concession stand to 365 Midwest Concessions. Present at the meeting were Health and Recreation Committee members Stelzer, Graves, and Lewis, as well as Mayor Brown. Members of the pool board were approached several weeks ago with the outsource concept. 365 Midwest Concessions has successfully applied this concept to several pools in the Columbus area and desire to expand their business to the Cincinnati area. We contacted the pool facility manager in Upper Arlington, which outsourced their concession stands to 365 Midwest Concessions several years ago, and he provided a full endorsement of the vendor and the process. The outsource arrangement would begin as soon as possible, which I'll allude to in a second here. 365 Concessions will pay the village $500 and 10% of all sales above $10,000 for the right to operate the concession stand during 2021. 365 Midwest Concessions will have full control of the stand, including the hiring of employees. The contract will be for 1 year only, and the terms will be reevaluated for any future extensions of the contract. Operation of the Mariemont Pool Concession has generated a loss for many years. The Mariemont Pool Advisory Board and the Mariemont Pool Manager were in favor of this outsource arrangement. The committee discussed the pros and cons of the outsource arrangement and voted unanimously to recommend to full council that the village enter into this outsourced contract with 365 Concessions. Respectfully submitted, Joe Stelzer, Avia Graves, and Marcy Lewis.
All right, you've heard the report, and I need a motion and a second to accept.
So moved.
Second?
We're going to warm it up. It's cold.
Oh, is it too cold?
Yeah.
No, turn it up a little bit.
We're dying.
Okay, just a couple things. We've had a little bit of a development late Friday. The concessionaire had somebody all arranged to come in to be their general manager. That person took another job on Friday, so we're kind of a little bit up in the air right now. I mean, so we're not sure if this will start immediately or possibly starting July 1st, or we might wait until the beginning of next season. So we have to, kind of figure out some kind of.
I mean, that's a heck of a gap.
Well, he has to find people, and, the problem is, the concessionaire is a professor at Wittenberg, so he's got a ready source of people to do this job for him, some of his students, but the person he had lined up already took another job last Friday. So this is when you're trying to move fast on an opportunity, some things happen, so.
Right.
And that's kind of where we're at right now. So this may not be an immediate beginning on the thing, and we'll know more in the next week or so about whether we can do it this year or if we have to wait till next year.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Conceptually, it's a great idea, I think.
Yeah,
We've needed
conceptually,
that
it's
for
a
long
great
time.
idea. I think what we need here, though, basically, and I talked to Ed about this, I don't think we need a resolution on this. We just basically need an up or down vote of council to approve the concept and the idea. And then should this position be able to be filled, hopefully, then we can just instantly put it into place, and the guy can get it up and running. Is that correct?
Right, there's some details we'll have to work out in the contractual, but Ed's already looked at the first draft of the contract.
Yeah, did you get the?
Yeah, I got it today, so,
Okay, yeah.
but we're way ahead on the contractual arrangement. We've actually got a copy of the Upper Arlington concession agreement, so we're modeling off of that to some extent and putting in RO. So we're way ahead on this process. You know, I will just say, the concession stand for years at the pool has been a problem. I mean, we have lost money, virtually every year as we're trying to run it ourselves. Upper Arlington had the same problem. They literally went to vending machines at one point to just get away from trying to run at the concession stand. So the concept is to bring somebody who has had positive experience, see if they can replicate that here. The individual is actually from Cincinnati, who would be the concessionaire, so he's got a local connection. And how this all started was this individual was a school classmate of one of our Mariemont residents' sons. So there was a connection that kind of got the whole thing rolling. It looks, and again, the pool board and the pool manager think this is a very good opportunity. We should give it a shot. And so we'll have to work through the details. It's more of approving the concept at this point because we don't know all the details yet.
So you're in contact with this individual, and you'll sort of be the point person to know whether or not he's
Let's
gonna
work
fit.
together on it, because I think,
Yeah,
by
I'm
the
more-
structure, Mariemont mayor should be doing administrative
more
things,
than
and
happy.
we should be doing legislative things, but
Because I would like
I'm
to
more
get
than
this-
willing to help.
Yeah, I would like to get this up and running, obviously, as
Okay.
soon as possible. So, like I said, I think what we're going to do, we'll vote to approve the report, then I think we'll just have an up or down vote as to whether or not conceptually this is a good idea, and should it fall into place, we're then in a position to move on. We don't have to come back into council to get something else
What
passed.
I'm going to do is, I'm sort of glad to hear there's no real rush to this, because I thought you wanted to get it started tomorrow. What I'll do is prepare a resolution to authorize you to sign the contract, do your up and down vote right now, then next meeting is what, like the 23rd of June?
28.
We'll be ready to go by July 1st.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the earliest they can get going, didn't you say?
Yeah, it'll probably be more towards the end of the month
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're voting on the committee report. Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Palazzolo.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
All right, so then how do I phrase that we're going to just do an up or down vote as to whether or not we conceptually agree with the concept?
Yeah, we'll just say
Yeah, that.
like
That was
that.
it.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay.
Well, I thought
well,
what Ed says, we're sort of voting on giving you the ability to sign the contract.
Right.
Right.
It's okay. I mean,
So
do you want to
somebody
vote
needs
on
to
that?
Make a motion here.
I move that we give Bill the ability to sign the contract once it comes together.
Second.
Okay,
Are we all good with that?
Yeah.
yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah. Okay.
We have to do roll call.
Well, you're looking at me
All right.
like it's crazy or
I'm waiting
something.
for you to go around.
Oh, she's just looking at you like you're crazy.
You're just
Mr.
crazy.
Bartlett.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Palazzolo.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
Okay, we're good on
That
that.
can be removed
wait,
from
look at
the
everybody.
agenda? That can be removed from the agenda?
I'd say so. I mean, I think we're done.
Again, you have a crazy eye.
All right, moving on to miscellaneous.
Thank you.
4th of July fireworks, of course, once again, will be held on Sunday, July the 4th. I will also be giving out Citizen of the Year Award on that day. The village offices will be closed in observation of Independence Day, Monday, July the 5th.
And then they're in it.
I got a couple of comments here. John gave me this at the start of the meeting. Apparently, we've been awarded our 30 years of Tree City.
All right.
Sweet.
Yeah, this is great. This is great.
Yay.
And I'm
And
sure
where are we going to put that?
We've
Yeah,
got
we'll
all
put
our
it
Tree
down
City
there.
stuff.
Yeah, we'll stick it up down there. I mean, that's very nice.
Kudos to John for getting that up and running again.
A little update on the poles. I know the concept, I think maybe, Joe, you were bugging me about trying to get the wooden poles out of the Murray Pathway area. I talked with Chris today about that, and to refresh ourselves on the contact information, as to who to contact and so on and so forth. Did you initiate any yet today, or is that?
Yeah, no, I reached out to Jason Burns and Cincinnati Bell, who finally got back to me later with, I'll look for an update. So that was the same thing I got a month ago. So
Okay.
I'll keep pushing. And then Jim Riley was the guy.
Yeah,
Spectrum.
from
I sent an email to
Spectrum.
him. He's out of the office, so
Yeah.
when he gets back, I can send him another message.
Yeah. They're always out of the office. I know. I have another contact
Yeah.
that I'm going to try to initiate that's higher up. You know, it's the original guy that I talked about at Cincinnati Bell. And this is one of the craziest things. It's
I
like,
think Dennis has a chainsaw.
Well, the good news, Bill, at least they moved the guy wire so we could put the path in.
yeah.
And literally,
was
they
at least
just,
a
literally, they
step.
just took them out.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't put any additional support structure in, they just cut the guy wire.
But
So-
I think, if I'm correct, I think we're only talking about 3 to 4 poles that are in the Murray Path median over there. I don't understand why it is they can't get over there and take those poles out. So, just an update, we're working on it, yeah. Okay, the poles, one quick thing that I was gonna mention earlier, our good friend, Mr. Vanstone is basically now working with Eileen to sort of get him up to speed. He's going to be coming in on a temporary basis, you know, to sort of fill that position as we look for a more permanent replacement. And I want to applaud
Thank you.
Vanstone for doing it.
I'll do it. Been clear.
The final comment here, I want to make a comment about the audit committee. And I know Joe has been putting together some things, and there's been some back and forth. And there was a letter from Tony today that sort of, I think it outlines reasonably well what it is we want an audit committee to do. Did you all get a copy of that?
I didn't forward, I can forward it later, but it outlines the reporting relationship
Yep.
between the audit
Yeah.
committee and the council and the mayor. So they know exactly how they, what they're supposed to do and how they report it.
Yeah, it's.
Because it even tells you what they should put in the report, which is
Right.
good, really helpful.
And one of the members of the audit committee had asked for that. They want to know exactly
Yeah,
what.
exactly, yeah, they've been asking, and we do have the names, I don't know whether you want me to.
Potential members, they haven't been assigned.
Potential,
yet.
yeah,
We
they
have
haven't
to
been
pa-
assigned yet, but we do have.
And we do have one other item. We have to run down the insurance question.
Well, you got to read the resolutions and ordinances
All right,
still,
come on.
too.
I know, I'm just saying,
Read.
yeah. In any case, we have names to fill these positions on the audit committee, and we're getting very close to doing that. All right, moving on to resolutions. Who's going to read the resolutions for us?
Read the title.
I'll read them. I'll read them.
Rob's
Say
getting
you
warmed up.
want
You won't.
Yeah, CDBG or whatever.
Maybe.
Okay, resolution. Renewal of 3.0 mil tax levy in excess of 10 mil limitation for capital improvements for the tax years 2021, 22, 23, 24, and 25. This is the second reading.
That's the second reading, that's the discussion. Is there any discussion on that?
No.
I think if Tony's already explained this to us, I believe.
Yep, it's just renewal.
Okay,
Okay,
second reading, we'll have the third reading next time.
Okay, the next resolution to enter into contract with XPEX for the purpose of enforcing the building codes applicable to the village and to issue related permits. This is the third reading.
That's the third reading, all right. I need a motion and a second to adopt that resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Nay.
nay, okay, nay. Ms. Palazzolo?
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin?
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer?
Aye.
All right, that will carry. All right, Rob, on the ordinances.
Sure. Creating the position of zoning officer for the village of Mariemont, establishing compensation therefore. It's the third reading.
That is the third reading. Wait a minute, I've lost my place. Oh, I got it, yeah, I got it. All right. All right, I need a motion and a second to adopt that ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Palazzolo?
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin?
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer?
Aye.
All right, that will be adopted. One more.
Ordinance amending section 151.04 of the Mariemont Code of Ordinances regarding fence construction. This is the first reading.
All right, that's the first reading. We'll have the second reading next meeting. All right, I hesitate to ask, as it is getting late, but is there anything else?
One thing.
Okay.
Oh,
No, no.
No,
So,
there is something
no,
else.
this is, I want to recognize Maggie.
Okay, well, I was going to say, you're right, I got ahead of myself
I
here.
think we need a resolution to make it.
I want us to take a moment to reflect upon the service that Maggie Palazzolo has given, to this community, to this council. It's almost 8 years, am I correct? Almost 8 years of cheerful, mostly service. You've done some good work. The village wants to, I don't know, I can't speak for the whole village, but I know I want to thank you, having served with you for a number of those years. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I know
Yes, great job.
Thank you, and we are going to miss you.
Oh, I'm not, well, we aren't going right away.
Oh,
You're
not
not
for a
going right
long
away.
time.
And I will miss
Right.
you too.
But we won't see your smiling little face across the way there, and that's going to be a loss.
I might come sit here.
Sit there,
Sit with
okay?
Dennis back there,
Yeah,
yeah.
sit with Dennis back there. That's right. Lord
But then
knows
when I have
anything.
things to say, I can't say them.
Maggie, who are you kidding? You should run and, run while you can.
Enjoy your retirement.
This is my first retirement.
I know. Enjoy your retirement. Yeah, you're too young to be retiring, trust me.
Trust me.
All right, are we adjourned?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Woo-hoo.
So Joni,